This is Ben Consoli live from the Mass Media Expo 2018, and you're listening to The Go Creative Show. Hey everyone, my name is Ben Consoli. I am a director and owner of BC Media Productions, and this is The Go Creative Show, the show dedicated to creative professionals in the video production and filmmaking industries. Today we are on the floor live from the Mass Media Expo 2018 with Matt Russell, Connor Crosby, and all sorts of special guests. We're interviewing keynote speakers, panelists, and representatives from some of the most influential media companies in New England. It's going to be a big one, so big it's actually a two-part episode. What? You heard me right. The Go Creative Show is supported by Rule Boston Camera, buy, rent, create at rule.com, newshooter.com, essential news for real-world shooters, hedge.video, the fastest way to back up media, shutterstock.com, and premiumbeat.com. Premium, royalty-free music and sound. So here we are, live here, Mass Media Expo. This is our third year, Matt, right?
Yeah, 3 years in a row. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it this year. We've been working so hard, but I'm really glad we did it.
We have. Matt and I just finished a monster of a project that I actually want to have. I want to have those guys on the show to talk about.
That'd be great.
The relationship between like producer and production and the agency producers and like these companies that have production companies basically like inside.
Inside, yeah.
Like that's cool to me. And also we've got Connor Crosby here who has not been on the show yet, but Connor, say hello to our
Hi, everyone.
Audience here. Connor is a director, producer, editor, all sorts of stuff. He has got a company called Ignition Visuals, and they do great work, so check him out at ignitionvisuals.com. And he's producing the show for us. Your first time producing a podcast live, isn't it?
That's right. And hey, you made it easy, so I appreciate that.
Look at that. We like to, the family's growing. I feel like we have a new member of the family now, Matt. Somebody's out there getting guests for us.
Knows what he's doing, that's for sure. We're going to have some good ones today.
There's a lot going on here at Mass Media Expo. I mean, you just look around. First of all, you're inside the WGBH studio, which is an event in and of itself.
It's so beautiful.
It really
is. To begin with. It's really a beautiful facility.
It's excellent, and it's lit up really well. Like, you obviously are going to expect it to be looking nice, but it's lit up really well. It's got a great flow here. We're here right in the center. I mean, you can't ask for a better spot. Can't miss us. People walk in and the first thing they see is Go Creative Show. We've really made a big spectacle of ourselves here. But we've been doing interviews live from the show floor all day long, and we talk about everything. We really do. We talk about everything from production to distribution to branded content and strategy. Taxes. Jesus, we talked about taxes.
It's been good. We were lucky this year. They've been sending the guests that are speaking in the Yawkey Theater right across from us over to us. So all the speakers from today have been on the show, and the branded content subject is really the thing today. That's what we're really talking about. And
yeah.
OTTs and a bunch of other acronyms.
I never heard of OTT.
Yeah, me neither.
But now I know. Over the top, it refers to, which still doesn't really explain it.
No, it doesn't.
But I guess it's like the set-top boxes you have in your systems, if it's like an Apple TV or a Fire Stick or whatever. I never knew what it was called.
Right.
But now I do. See,
right.
This is what we're all about. We're all about learning here at the Go Creative Show. And I think we should start right now because we've got so much content. I don't want to spend our time yapping here. Let's get right to it.
Excellent.
So I'm here with Christopher Kaiser, who is the keynote speaker today at the Mass Media Expo. That's exciting. You're a showrunner, a writer, and an executive producer. What else do you do? Do you cook? Do you play banjo?
I sleep.
Exactly. Try to find time for it. So tell us why you're here and what you're speaking on.
Well, I'm talking generally, I think, about the state of the television business, and what's changed and the economics of it. I'm here in general because I'm shooting a show for Netflix. It's a first season show, and we've about 2 months or so into production. We'll be here till the end of the year. So.
I know it says in your notes here a yet to be titled.
It's a yet to be, yes. They keep calling it the Untitled Chris Kaiser Project, which I kind of like.
Hey, I think it should stay that way.
Yes, I've gotten used to it. So, but we don't know. They're thinking about titles.
So what brought you to Boston to shoot?
Well, the show is set in New England, and so this is a perfect place for it. It's the idea that the houses, the streets, the light, everything feels right here. And the place is very hospitable. And obviously, from Netflix's point of view, the economics works well, which matters a lot to them. And then naturally to us because we've got to make our budget. So and this turned out to be perfect. We've had a great time here at New England Studios and in and around New England Studios and all the towns. It embodies the feeling of the show without pretending. So.
Tell us about the life of a showrunner. We've had showrunners on the show before. In fact, the person that wrote the book about what showrunning is was on the show talking about it, but things change all the time. And I think a lot of people don't understand just how much responsibility the showrunner has on a TV show. And I'd love to hear your perspective of what that role is.
Yeah, I mean, it's from beginning to end, I guess in some sense, the CEO and chief operating officer of a small company. So if you've created the show, then you begin with coming up with the idea for it. But from that point on, you're more or less in charge of every phase of it, which will mean hiring the writers, hiring some of the key people like your producer, the director potentially, unless you've done it. On my show, for example, I'm a partner with the director. So Mark Webb and I did this together. We run the show together.
Excellent.
So we hire the writers, we organize the writing staff, we then beat out the stories for the entire season. By the way, these things happen simultaneously. I'm just going to tell them to you in order.
Sure, yeah.
But they don't. At some point, you then hire all the keys for all the departments, along with your producer. You begin to help design the production itself. Once production starts, you're in and around the set potentially, making sure that the stuff is shot properly. You're casting it. You're hiring the music people. You edit the show once it's done. You pick the music. You do every single phase of production from the first moment of coming up with the idea to the last moment of being on the mix stage and making sure it sounds exactly the way you want it. You're
the most intimately involved out of probably anybody involved in the project. It sounds like you're from the very beginning to the very, very end.
From beginning to end, yeah. A project like this requires hundreds of people, and it is the creative collaboration of a lot of people and some very key people who have put in a very large fingerprint on what the creative product is. But the showrunner or showrunners are the people who are there from day one to the last day.
How are you with relinquishing control? Because this is your baby, but you have many people working under you that are also creative people that need to have their vision, propelled in some way in this project. How do you work with people like directors and cinematographers that are creative people that want to put their stamp on it as well?
Yeah, one, you have no choice because it's too large a job to do by yourself. And if you're wise, you hire people you trust, and then you let them go do what they do really well. You give them input. They give you input as well. It's not like people aren't giving me notes every single day.
And you want that. You don't want a yes person.
But I'm working right now with a lot of people I know from before. The producer, Pavlina Hatupis, who's doing the show with me. We've done 3 shows in a row together. Attila Zaleh, who's the DP, has done 2 shows with me. Anna Fishko, who's the number 2 writer on the show. We've done 3 shows together.
Yeah.
And you hire a lot of new people, often new people who've almost never done it before. We've made a real commitment to, one, hiring writers who are starting out, directors who have not, some directors who have never directed in television before.
Wow.
Try to hire diverse, gender diverse and diverse in other ways, staffs of people. It's really important to do that. But to hire people you trust, and then to give them the free rein to do something. I think that show can work that way. The show is a box, and you have to exist inside the box, but there's room inside the box to be yourself. And when I hire a writer, for example, I'm hiring a writer both to recreate my vision of the show, but also to bring his or her particular creative input. I don't want it to be just the same thing I would write. I like shows where you can tell the difference between the writers who write episodes.
Yeah, I think that brings a unique aspect to it.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that television shows oftentimes have multiple directors throughout the series. And I think, you think of a film and you have one director that stays throughout the whole project, but TV is a little bit different. Right. On your show, do you have multiple directors?
We have many directors. Mark Webb, who's doing this with me, is directing multiple episodes. Everyone else is directing just one. And there are 7 other directors on the show.
Wow.
Some of whom I've known and some of them. You can't direct every episode of a drama because it's essentially a 3-episode process. You've got to prep the episode, which means get ready to shoot, cast it, figure out where your locations are, decide how you're going to shoot each location. You do all of that, and you do it while the previous episode is being shot. Then you shoot your episode, and then you post your episode. You have an editor's cut. So even if you wanted to, you'd need to take a break for a couple of episodes before you direct again. So you can have people repeat, but you can't have somebody do all of them, except in some of these very short order shows where all of it's done essentially like one very long movie. So it's true that there are 6-episode series, for example, where a single director will direct all of them. I think Matt Weiner directed all the episodes of the Romanovs. That may be even longer, but he had a very long prep period before. This is a show in which we don't do that. We have different directors for each episode.
Do you like the energy of that, bringing on a new director? Because a director's really the vision of that episode as well. And that must be a really unique experience.
Yeah, I think collaboration actually makes things better. I'm not saying that people who have even tighter control can't produce an extraordinary product, but over the long run, having some other voices, as long as there's also a unifying voice or a couple of unifying voices, that's my job and Mark's job and Pav's job. As long as there are a few of those, the intersection of people's visions and backgrounds and points of view, I think makes it more interesting over time.
In our last couple of minutes, I'd like to just get a little info into what you're speaking about today. I know you said you're kind of talking about the state of the industry, television production in general, but any key points that you can share with us today for the people that aren't going to be able to see your presentation?
I'm not sure. I think some of this is going to be a conversation about the way in which the business has changed from the old broadcast days to now we're short seasons on streaming networks, how viewership patterns have changed the way we tell stories, the implications for that not just creatively, but also economically. I was the president of the Writers Guild for 4 years, so I think we'll talk a little bit about the way things work for writers and potentially for actors and directors as well. So that's going to come up. How I think we'll probably have some conversations that you and I have had about how a room works and how a showrunner works.
Yeah.
Maybe a few questions about my specific projects. I think that's the gist of it. But the most interesting thing is the way in which the delivery of television programs has changed the way we tell stories.
Can you give us maybe one note on that? Like what do you think is the biggest change?
Well, for example, in the old days, because television networks wanted people to be able to tune into any episode at any point. That's how they could run reruns. Episodes were more or less standalone. They tended not to be serialized. So most of the old famous shows that you've heard of, not entirely true, but when you think about cop shows, police shows, medical shows, you can watch any episode of ER more or less. And although there are some continuing stories, you're okay. Law and Order is like that also. It was certainly true in old Westerns or whatever. And that was all driven by the fact that networks wanted to make sure that people could watch those things on any given week when you had to tune in at a given time, even if they'd missed the 2 previous weeks. That's how they made money on reruns. Nowadays, you don't care about that. You can watch the show. They often are delivered, as Netflix does, at one point for everyone, and you can watch them whenever you want, which means people are beginning to watch them one after another. And so storytelling has become much more serialized, much more novelistic. Our stories have adapted to that. People want to, and because there's so much product, they don't necessarily want 22 episodes of something. They want to watch 6 or 8 or 10 episodes and then move on to something else and come back to it again. So we tell stories in some ways based upon the economic model that determines that's based on how these shows are delivered.
Music industry is the same way. Songs used to be 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and then they went up to 3.5, and the industry and the listening patterns change the art sometimes.
Right.
Something I'm fascinated with is back when YouTube started, and I know we have a lot of young listeners, but there was a time before YouTube, for those of you listening, there was this shift to saying audiences have no attention. Videos went from 15 minutes, corporate videos like I produce, 15 minutes to 10 minutes to 5 minutes, and just shorter. But then this idea of binge watching came, and you realize that people are willing to give you a lot of time if you're willing to give them something that they can conveniently find on their own. And have you found that change the way that you've been producing over your career?
Well, I thought it was going to be a bigger change, and I'm going to kind of repeat essentially what you said, is there was a point in time in which we worried that stories were going to get chopped up into tiny little pieces, that you could only tell 7-minute stories or chapters of or 10 minutes or whatever, because that's how people would watch videos. Turns out, as you say, that half-hour or even more hour-long storytelling chunks, connected sometimes because people stream more than once, are really the viewership, the viewing choice for most people. So in that sense, that part of the storytelling has changed less than before. What's changed more is the linkage of stories across episodes. Episodes they don't matter as much anymore. They're like flipping the last page of a chapter of a book to the next chapter, the first page of the next chapter. People watch them like that. So that changes the way we tell stories, the way we link things. But I like that because certainly my desire when we were doing, for example, our earliest shows like Party of Five, when we pushed against some of this stuff, was to tell ongoing connected stories rather than entirely episodic stories. It didn't make people as happy back then. Now people are perfectly happy to see that. So
Let's name drop for the last minute of here. Tell us a couple of projects you've been involved in and where people can find out more about you.
I have no idea where they can find out more about me.
Oh, all right. So you're not a big social media person.
No, God.
Why are you here? I'm going to blow this open for you.
I'm here as a guest because we're here in Massachusetts. So, but Party of Five was Amy Littman and I created Party of Five. That was our first most successful show. We did a bunch of shows since then. Last year I did a show with Billy Ray called The Last Tycoon on Amazon. It lasted one season, and you can still see it on Amazon if you want. And before that I did a show called Tyrant, which was on FX that Howard Gordon and Glenn Gordon Caron and I did
That show
together.
looks so goddamn good.
I like that show. That was
Yes.
fun. Anyway, but things come and go. And so now I'm doing this Netflix show, this untitled Netflix show with Mark Webb, and Amy and I are doing a remake of Party of Five.
Are you serious?
Yes, we're doing.
Oh my
yes.
God, that's amazing.
So, but it's not really the old show. This new idea is that a Latino family has its parents deported, and the kids have to learn how to take care of themselves. So it uses the very general premise to talk about America as it is. So we're not going
timely
back.
and effective, and I'm really excited for all of the new cool things that you're working on.
You're not like everyone then, because that's great.
And humble too.
Yeah.
He's a humble guy. Christopher Kaiser, thank you so much for being on the
It was
show.
my
And I
pleasure.
really would love to have you on for a full show to talk about this project you're working on now. I'm just going to call it the Christopher Kaiser Show until we know more.
Okay. Well, we're around. We're shooting until the end of December.
We'd love to have you back.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Ben. Bye.
I'm here with Jason Rosenberg, Director of Brand Partnerships at Funny or Die. What a great gig.
Yeah,
Jesus.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, and it's good to be here. And yeah, I mean, I hope the expectation isn't too high for me to be funny because that's not really my job. I let the creative people do that.
You're a behind-the-scenes person,
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
I'm the guy behind the guy behind the guy.
I want to talk about what brand partnerships means and kind of what you're speaking about here at the Mass Media Expo.
Sure, yeah. Well, for us, I mean, Funny or Die has been around for over 10 years now. I think we're around 11 years old, actually. We were started in 2007. And, the landscape has changed quite a bit. It used to be take really funny people, come up with a really funny idea, throw them a little bit of production budget, we'll make it, we'll put it on the website, we'll sell ads against it, and then we'll make money and everyone's happy. Stuff gets out, people see it, they're entertained, they're laughing. But the economics have changed so much that we as a company and really as an industry need to find new ways of financing content, finding ways to get money into the people who are talented, that are funny, that are producers, to make that content. And in our world, that a lot of time means brands and advertisers. So my job as director of brand partnerships is to find those brands, connect them with the talent so that we can still make really funny, entertaining things, but also not, lose money in the process of doing it.
Now, you hear a lot this term branded content. It's something that you're hearing more and more really over the past couple of years. Is brand partnerships kind of the umbrella term for branded content?
Yeah, and brand partnerships can take a lot of different forms. Most people think about it in terms of video content, and a lot of times that is what it is, but it could be articles, it could be short pieces of social content, GIFs, memes. It can even be events. We do a ton of events with brand partners also. So in our world, that means anytime we do something that's entertaining for consumers, for audiences, if it's funded by a brand, then it's branded content.
So now you're incorporating is it that you're incorporating brands into pieces that you guys are producing, like it's part of the content that you're doing, or is it more of a sponsorship, or how do you incorporate your client base into the work that Funny or Die does?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, it really depends on the project. It depends on the brand partner. Sometimes it can be very overtly branded. It could just be like a long version of a funny commercial. It could be a 2-minute funny commercial. Sometimes it's a subtle integration of a product or a brand into a piece of content that we're making. Sometimes it's just thematic. Sometimes a brand just wants to do something that's, makes them the expert or has them talking about a certain subject or, a certain theme. And our job is to, work within those confines and in those guidelines and work with the brand to find a way to help them tell that story.
Can you tell us a story of maybe one of your favorite branded content partnerships or something that just really was interesting and cool for you?
Well, one, we're actually going to talk about it today on stage, so I guess this is a good opportunity to sort of bring it up again.
Test it out on us first.
Yeah,
we'll let you know if it's worth it.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So something that we've done recently is a video series called Cooking with Jeff. And the idea of it is it's a branded piece of content that was funded, and we partnered with Kroger grocery stores. And the idea behind it is, we send Jeff Goldblum, everybody's favorite Jurassic Park star, I guess.
Of course.
But also a really, really funny guy, very quirky guy. So we send him out to a grocery store. It's a Ralph's. It's a Kroger grocery store chain. He does some shopping. He interacts with the people that work there, some of the people that are shopping there, and then he goes back to his house and cooks a nice meal. And it's 10 minutes of content. It's beautifully shot. It's high quality content, but also really, really funny. And also, Kroger's
sounds like
happy.
a great premise.
It's amazing. I mean, I think we joke internally that we should just do a whole series of just X with Jeff. It can be anything. You put Jeff Goldblum, I would watch that guy pretty much do anything. Yeah. But yeah, Cooking with Jeff has been hugely popular, really successful. We've done 2 episodes so far, and we're hoping to do more.
So now, how does that happen? Did you said this was Kroger? Or
Kroger, yeah.
Kroger.
Yep.
So how does it happen? Do they come to you and they say, we want to do something funny? I don't know what. Come up with something cool.
Yeah.
Or do you guys approach them? Like, how does the relationship begin?
I mean, it works all different ways.
Yeah.
This one in particular with Kroger, this was an idea that our team came up with that we thought was really, really funny. But obviously, Cooking with Jeff is only relevant for a handful of different brands, right?
Yeah.
Brands that you might find in a grocery store and grocery stores themselves. So this was a project that, we brought out to advertisers that we felt would be a good fit, that would be additive, that we felt would be a good fit for Jeff. And Kroger was, the one that said, actually, yeah, this is great. We would love to do this. And they gave us some notes on things that they want to make sure get across. We want to make sure that people see that our grocery stores are beautiful. We want to make sure that people understand that our customer service is great, that we have great selection. So, our writing staff work with them to make sure that all that stuff was incorporated.
That's just so interesting. And how involved are you in the production side of things? Do you do mostly just the pre-production part, like getting the client, getting the concept off the ground, or are you involved all the way through?
Yeah, I mean, I like to stay in my lane.
Yeah.
So I am somewhat involved in the production process in the sense that, I need to be aware of what's realistic and what's not. Sometimes you have brand partners that maybe aren't as versed in the production space with big ideas, but maybe not budget that makes sense for that particular idea. So
Yeah.
I need to have an understanding of how things work so that when we're out talking to partners, we're not just talking about crazy ideas that'll never happen, right? They have to be grounded in reality. So I have a background and an understanding of how it works, but when it actually comes to the production of the content, I let the talented people at Funny or Die, our writers, producers, directors, do what they do best.
This is a whole new industry. I mean, this really didn't even exist that long ago. All you could do before was television, film. There really wasn't that much, before the internet, before easily consuming videos online. Well, how did you do these things? This is a relatively new industry. Where do you see it going in the next 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I wish I knew the answer to that.
What's your
I
gut tell you?
My gut is that it's going to continue to grow and evolve and change. I mean, we've already seen, this industry is relatively new, but even in the last 10 years since we've been doing it, it's changed so much, right? It used to just be funnyordie.com. We'll make a video for you, we'll put it on our website, you'll come in and you'll watch it. Now there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's Snapchat, there's YouTube, there's, people are putting content on LinkedIn too. Like there's so many different places, and now you've got OTT platforms. So, I think
OTT standing for?
Over the top. So your Roku devices, your PlayStations and things like that, where you can get your content without having to pay for cable subscription.
And you guys have had TV shows too, right? I mean, wasn't the Brockmire show put on by Funny or Die?
Yeah, you're a fan?
Oh, a huge fan. I love that show.
Yes, so Funny or Die is, a lot more than just a digital studio. We have a long-form department that does TV shows like Brockmire. We've also have a great relationship with Netflix. We did American Vandal Season 1 and Season 2.
That show is the best.
It's incredible, yeah.
Yeah. And we have some shows on Hulu and on CBS All Access and Comedy Central. So yeah, long form and television is definitely an important part of our business and will continue to be.
great.
For sure.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on. Good luck at your presentation today. You're talking about cord cutters, OTT, VOD, WTF, lots of acronyms.
Yeah, lots of letters.
But it sounds like a really interesting panel, and we've got a couple of the other people from your panel coming on the show as well. So can't thank you enough for your time, and I'd love to have you back for a full episode to talk more about what you do, Funny or Die, and the projects that you're working on.
That'd be great, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Where can people go to find more about you?
About me, I would say LinkedIn, I suppose. Go on LinkedIn. Put in Jason Rosenberg in the search bar, hit enter, and I should pop up, I guess, right? That's the way that works.
There you go, troll him, give him some messages, annoy him.
Whatever it is that people do. Yeah, whatever you need to do.
No, don't, because then he's going to regret being on the show, and I wouldn't like that. Jason, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm here with Megan Cunningham. She's the CEO of Magnet Media, and here speaking at the Mass Media Expo 2018. How exciting.
Thank you, Ben. I'm excited as well.
Tell me about Magnet Media. What is it?
So Magnet is a strategic studio, which means that we are a creative studio which uses data and storytelling to drive measurable outcomes. So that's normally, we work for brands. It's the large majority of what we do, but we also work for a handful of nonprofit organizations. And so we use outcomes rather than business results when it comes to that. But the goal is really to help tell all using all the access to data that everyone has today, but we're usually in large enterprises kind of overwhelmed by all the different data points, and it's not easy to indicate how can we reach our audiences, how can we create experiences and storytelling that is just so powerful that people want to engage with us.
So you're creating the content and you're able to track it and get data on who's watching it.
Yes.
That's a very powerful combination. My God.
Seriously.
We're video nerds, really, is what it comes down to, and filmmakers. So
That is awesome. What are some of the clients that you're working with?
yeah, so we work a lot. Apple was our very first client, actually. So from the day
It's
one,
a good first client. If I told you my
Doesn't
first
suck.
client,
It doesn't suck at all.
you say that, Matt, but the
No, I'm
interesting
sure they're
thing
tough.
it was back in the day. See, I'm now dating myself, but it was back in the day when Apple was the 2% market share company. This is
I remember those days.
Pre-retail store. So they were much easier to win than Microsoft at the time.
Right.
But having said that, they were obviously very involved in the creative community, which I was a part of as well. And, we helped them reach that community in different ways as they launched Final Cut and Logic and all these sort of professional tools. And they were really innovators and set the bar high for us from a perspective of targeting your audience using the tools that were available at the time. And, then fast forward the clock, YouTube is then bought by Google. Google became a big client and partner of ours. And
Wow.
So we were really fortunate to be sort of on I would say in the very early phase of the branded content trend.
Wow.
tell me about the data points that you guys are providing to your clients. I'm fascinated by this because as a director with BC Media Productions, you make things that you don't know what the hell's going on. Your measure of success is if your clients come back and want more work.
Totally true. Yes. And I think what's interesting is I feel like this trend works across the board. And frankly, part of why Netflix has been so successful has been because they use data in such a strategic way. Thinking through the fact that, it was a topic of conversation in my office recently that it was an aha moment that my trending topic or my trending, films or series on Netflix when I log in is not the same as yours. It's
Exactly.
not like a globally trending thing. It's based on what I've watched in the past, what I've watched all the way through, what I've watched multiple times, et cetera. And so that level of targeting, I think, is certainly giving them a massive advantage as a global media powerhouse. Similarly, brands are now, struggling with the fact that there is less and less opportunity to reach consumers through traditional ad mediums. And so they are looking to social channels and digital mediums and, even filmmaking, which is what we're here talking about today, to reach consumers in different ways. So I didn't answer your question directly, but the data points themselves are custom to the client. And I would say it's a combination of what data the client usually brings to the table, plus our own strategic insights that we surface through original strategy or research.
So when clients come to you,
Yeah.
are they asking for concepts too? Are you acting almost like an ad agency where you're coming up with ideas?
We are coming up with ideas, but we're not an agency because we don't produce ads. We're based in New York and 3 blocks from Madison Avenue, but for 15 years have never made a single ad. So
Wow.
so it's really always been content and storytelling, and I think that distinguishes us. We also don't buy media in the traditional ways, but we have what's called a think, make, reach model. So it's a strategic practice where, like I mentioned to you, we're using a lot of tools and frameworks and data sets to help identify where you can most easily reach your audience. The make part is the really creative part. It could be a long form film, it could be a YouTube series, it could be a podcast, whatever sort of makes the most sense to, again, kind of tell the brand story and tell the story that the audience is wanting to hear. And then from a reach perspective, that's really distribution strategy.
So they come to you and they say, we want to create some sort of content to reach our audience. And you guys act as production company as well.
Turnkey.
That's great.
Yeah, thanks.
What a great service.
Thank you. It's really fun. I will say it's challenging but fun, and I think it's becoming more and more the norm. I think a lot of, frankly, traditional media companies, traditional agencies are sort of now transitioning their own business to become more consultative and more production oriented. I think you're seeing that across the board, and it's based on a market need. There's, what we like to say is one throat to choke, right?
I like that.
It's crazy to me because 15 years ago, the production company and the ad agency were very separated.
Very true.
And that came together. And I remember seeing that trend where companies were doing everything.
Yep.
But now you're going at a big step forward from that. You're leaping into stuff now where you're saying, we can provide you the analytics and research to get to your audience the way you want to, or better yet, the way we think you need to.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, and I don't mean to put ourselves up on a pedestal. I do think a lot of the brands that we're working with, because we're servicing a lot of technology brands as well as financial services, they have a lot of analytic tools themselves and, a lot of data available. So
you were saying they have data of their own, but you provide data.
Yes.
How do you do that?
So, I mean, the key is really figuring out from the beginning what the goal is for the client. So every client obviously is succeeding in certain areas and has gaps in others. Okay. It may be that they want to reach a new audience, in which case we can provide personas and data on the buying habits or viewing habits, what content that group is consuming, et cetera. It may be that they're reaching an audience, but just not at scale. And so it's about, finding new platforms or new ways to efficiently reach their audience, if that makes sense. So the data points themselves are sort of custom tailored to what the gap is or what the brief states is the challenge. And it can be, again, data that we're using as a combination from social channels or things that we identify ourselves. And, it's particular to the engagement.
It's pretty great.
Thank you.
In our last couple of minutes, I want to talk about branded content.
Yeah.
Because I know with me, I'm a director. I own BC Media Productions. We work with ad agencies all the time. And when I first started, the pinnacle was commercials.
Yeah.
And it still is a great industry. I mean, I love doing commercials.
Of course.
But I feel like more and more, even if you're doing a commercial, there's also a branded content component where it's just now everybody knows what it is. It's not just agency buzzwords anymore. Companies know what it is, what it means. So there's been a shift in the industry, and I'd love to get your perspective on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I have nothing against ads. I think a lot of times I'm positioned at industry conversations as like the anti-ad girl, and that's definitely not my attitude. But I do think that we were pretty early on to identifying what is right now, as you mentioned, a mainstream sort of awareness that ad-supported media, if it's exclusively ad-supported, is in real decline. And the reason for that is just consumer consumption habits, right? You're seeing, in Asia, for example, almost 98% of the population has ad blockers on their mobile devices, and mobile devices is where everyone's consuming content. So, in the U.S., ad blockers are one of the number one apps downloaded on desktops. So most browsers can no longer serve ads. So the business has fallen off for ad-supported media, and I think that based on that, we're again, sort of always saying this, but now it's become sort of a business mandate that we are producing content that audiences want to seek out and share rather than ads that they're trying to block and avoid. And
Yeah.
if you are, a brand trying to reach your consumer, why would you possibly spend money on something that people are trying to actively avoid?
It blows my mind because they're doing the same thing. Brand building, trying to tell you about a new product or a new thing to buy.
Yes.
But one is just so much more authentic and interesting. And
Thank
the
you.
other is, it's just clearly there just to sell you something. And people know, people are smart.
Yeah, I think branded content done right is what you just described. Interesting and entertaining. It's so rarely.
Have you
done
seen
right.
it done wrong?
Yeah, I think it's very commonly
What's a mistake
done wrong.
people make?
A mistake people make is thinking of it product first, where the company is sort of the hero of the journey of the story, instead of thinking about making your customer the hero or your audience the hero, or just really how can you possibly entertain your audience, right? Could you do something comedic or something super emotional and uncover a real story, where you hire a filmmaker and then stay out of their way, So I think it's a big challenge because, Matt, as you mentioned, it's like one of those things where all of us have grown up, for the most part, all of us have grown up in this industry where the client is in control. The client is almost like the more senior to the director on a set to a certain degree.
Sure.
And, unless they're there executing the client's vision, you're not doing your job, right? And I think that in this world, it's a much more collaborative, sort of democratized approach creatively, which is difficult for people to adapt to. But at the end of the day, I enjoy it. I feel like navigating those waters is where it can be tricky, but also really fulfilling.
Are you guys able to work with other production companies? Like, could another production company come to you and say, we're going to produce it, obviously, but we want your services for all the analytics and the data points?
Yeah, and we do that selectively for sure. I think that, depending on what the project is, without a doubt, that's something that we could provide. I think the strategy piece is a domain where we feel like we offer a lot of value.
Of course.
If it's analytics only, maybe it's just like we'd be happy to provide advice because we're all in the same crazy community.
Sure.
But it's not like, I don't want to position ourselves like a tech company. It's not like we have more data than Facebook.
Right.
So.
Well, I'm very intrigued in what you do, and I'm excited to learn more. And
Thank
if our
you.
audience wants to learn more, where can they go to find out?
Yes, please. Well, we have all the variety of social channels where they can follow us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, but we also have a general website, magnetmediafilms.com.
magnetmediafilms.com. I love it.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Megan Cunningham, for being on the show.
Thank you.
And enjoy your panel. It's going to be a good one, branded content and storytelling.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks so much.
Let's take a quick break and talk about Hedge. Hedge.video is a backup software for filmmakers. It's really that simple. And that's what you want in backup software. You don't want something confusing and annoying and complicated. You don't want that. You want ease of use, you want speed, you want accuracy. That's what you get with Hedge. So this is how I use Hedge. I am kind of psycho when it comes to my backups. I want to make sure everything is backed up in two places. I have to do that, or else I just don't feel right. And oftentimes, I'm my own DIT. So I get my media cards from my camera operators, my audio techs, backstage, behind the scenes photographers. Everybody's giving me their cards. And I want to make sure that everything is backed up correctly so that I can have peace of mind. So I fire up Hedge, I import multiple sources, all of these media cards, each one is a new source, so multiple sources, and I send it to multiple destinations, meaning I send it to 2 different hard drives. You can set up however many you want. But for me, it's 2. So I set it all up, I press the transfer button, and it goes. And I don't have to worry about it. And I also don't have to wait for it because I have the Connect app for my phone. So I can take a break and I get a notification on my phone when the transfer is done. And I know that it's being done quickly and I know it's being done right. So I don't need to worry. And that's what I love. So you can go to hedge.video/Go Creative Show and check out a free trial. Certainly try that. But they have a whole bunch of different licensing options. You can do project licensing if you want to just have it for one project. And you can get full licensing too. And actually, we've got a 20% off discount by typing in Go Creative Show in the coupon code. So you get 20% off the full license, which is awesome. I love the people at Hedge because they are constantly innovating. They are constantly updating. And you think to yourself, with a program so simple, how can there constantly be these updates? But there are, and they're seamless, and they are valuable. And that's what I love about these guys. They are not staying stagnant. They are constantly changing, constantly innovating, truly leading this industry. So head over there, hedge.video. Check it out for yourself. Try the free version, but I guarantee you're going to love this program and you're going to want it for yourself. So save yourself the time and just dive right in. Type in Go Creative Show in the coupon code and get yourself a full license. You will love it. Head over there, hedge.video/Go Creative Show. All right, well, so much information already from the Mass Media Expo, but we haven't even scratched the surface. Not even close, people. Strap in. We got so much more to come. So I'm here with Rob Sheard. He's the SVP, Senior Vice President for 0.0. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Now, in just about an hour, you're going to be doing your presentation here at the Mass Media Expo. What do you think of this event, first of all?
Yeah, it's great. So I was here last year as well, and it looks like it's really grown. Like, it looks like the theater's a little bit more full, and, great group of vendors and some great panelists and speakers. So, I think it's also a great, networking opportunity, good opportunity to get the Boston production community together, see what everyone else is up to, opportunities to help each other out. It's, a close-knit group. So, it's a fun, worthwhile event for sure.
What is 0.0?
So we're a media company. We produce. We're best known. The company was founded on the back of Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown about 17 years ago. So
wow.
We had produced that, and then have done hundreds of hours of television. The Mind of a Chef, The Meat Eater, The Hunt with John Walsh. Several Netflix originals. We've done 3 documentary films. We've got The Last Magnificent with Jeremiah Tower's story. Wasted, which was a documentary on food waste that Anthony Bourdain executive produced that was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. We did one called Fermented, which is the history of fermentation with Chef Edward Lee. So
a lot of food, a lot of food,
a lot of travel is kind of like what we're best known for. Yeah.
And that all began with Parts Unknown?
Yeah. So Chris Collins and then Lydia Tenagler, the company founders, it started out with them cold calling Bourdain after they had read Kitchen Confidential and saying, "Hey, would you be interested in doing television?" That then led to a trip to Japan that became the Cook's Tour, and then they did some stuff in Spain at El Bule, and then that evolved into the show with the Travel Channel, and then it had been at CNN for the last 5 years. So
it's amazing. We had the cinematographer from Parts Unknown on the show. Can't remember his name,
I'll look it up right now.
So maybe Mo Fallon? Or?
No,
okay.
It was more recently.
Okay.
We'll find this name. Matt's out there typing away.
All right.
You think we'd have that name on the top of our mind, but I wasn't expecting to be talking about Anthony Bourdain today.
Yeah.
So your job as Senior Vice President, obviously you are high up in the organization, but do you have a creative side as well? Are you involved in production in any way?
I started out, so how I got to know the folks at 0.0 was about 8 or 9 years ago. I was marketing small kitchen appliances, and
it's always food with you.
Yeah, a lot of food. You can tell by my body shape, so I wear it well. So we were spending a lot of money on like Food Network shows and things like that, and I was just kind of like very bored with like the genre. Like there hadn't been anything new, and was a fan of Parts Unknown, and went to them, and we started working. It actually was started as an app that we were developing with the chef David Chang. It was called the Lucky. The name of the app was going to be Lucky Peach. There was going to be a print component and all of these different things. This was when about a year after the iPad came out, so everything's Wi-Fi. And ZPZ shot it just as we would any other food show. So you had all of this high-def content, and then you realize, on a 32 gigabyte iPad and having to download it on Wi-Fi, this was never going to be an app. It was an awesome app that never saw the light of day. So that then evolved into Mind of a Chef season 1 with David Chang. So we're, have done 6 seasons of that show. So yeah, I mean, I certainly, I think my job is to make sure our creative teams have the room to operate and
Sure.
the ability to get their kind of vision to come to life and things like that. So I don't consider myself a core creator on the team, I guess.
Well, you're enabling that process to happen, and that's really, really important. Without the guys at the top, there's nothing to trickle down, apparently.
Keep legal and business affairs away from them so they can go out and do their jobs.
Exactly. Well, you're on a panel called Branded Content and Storytelling.
Yep.
So what is that panel going to be about? What are you speaking on today?
I think as a lot of audience attention is going away from ad-supported television, whether it's SVOD subscriptions or it's just not there. There are a lot of opportunities to collaborate with brands on developing original television, original film, integration opportunities to fund production, and it's I think a lot of it is how do you do that with integrity? How do you collaborate with a brand? What are they looking for as far as like return on investment? And I think a lot of it also is how do you show a brand that there's value in creating something that is aspirational, has a decent budget, that is still going to give them a way to get their message out there. So that's going to be a lot of the stuff that we're talking about.
So you're trying to find ways, and speaking on ways of incorporating advertisers in unique ways so that it doesn't feel like you're being sold something.
It's not necessarily that you're not being sold something. It's how can a brand fund something that they're going to be proud of, that's going to connect and reach an audience? How do you distribute it? All of the kind of the steps along the process. And it's, for the folks that are here today, it's how can you fund the things that you want to do in collaboration with brands rather than just, going on the pitch circuit and hoping someone picks it up. So.
Well, what are some tips that people can do that want to have the backing and the collaboration and the partnership really with brands to help support their content?
I think a lot of it is just knowing as much as you can about the brand and then the audience that you're going to connect with, and then creating something that's going to fit there. And it's not all about logo placement and product integration and all of those things. It's really about helping a brand find an audience that's desirable to them. And if it gets a little complex when you start thinking about like general data protection and things, but like brands need to create things that allow them to have a first-party connection to the audience. So it's helping them create something that the audience is going to watch on their own accord. They'll maybe opt in for some future marketing from the brand or different things like that. So that's the biggest thing is understanding as much about the partners you can, and then understanding as much as you can about the audience that you want to reach, and crafting a compelling story or a film or whatever it might be around that.
I'm a commercial director, and I own a production company here in Boston, and branded content is like the greatest thing in the world to me because you're making something that people want to watch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
100%.
Like commercials are cool, whatever. I like them, but people generally avoid them.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. And if you can create something that does the same thing, but in an authentic way that's entertaining, that people want to watch, that is why branded content to me is like the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, and you're seeing, I think the caliber of branded content is just getting better and better. And if you look at like what brands like Patagonia or, what a lot of like aspirational brands are doing, they're putting, big dollar budgets into these productions and really doing some cool stuff. And the audience does want to connect with it and see it. So, I think, I was on your website checking out your work to do some great stuff. And it really is, an opportunity to be creative. And it's not just doing a 30-second spot that's going to run a couple of times, Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the things that we're talking about with our clients all the time is they'll come to us and they'll say, oh, I want to do a commercial. And it's like, okay, great. But when you talk to them, you realize that they kind of don't almost. It's like they want to have awareness, but they don't really want to buy the airtime. And they also don't like the feel of a commercial so much. They want to be associated with something more useful or helpful.
And unless it's live sports or, breaking news, no one really watches 30-second spots.
So except for me.
They have to find a way to connect with that audience, on a different way in their terms. And, there's so many different ways to connect with the audience now. It is, it's an exciting time, I think, for the whole industry and for, really A-class creators to get involved with brands.
I love it. So from a storytelling standpoint, We talked about the branded content. Tell us of the importance of the storytelling. How has that changed in the course of your career and how long you've been with 0.0?
I don't know how much it's changed. I think it's finding like either the right person to get behind who is a storyteller or the right story. And whether it's funded by a brand or it's a commissioned production from a network, that's what the audience connects with, are great stories. And a great storyteller filmed in a captivating way has worked for a lot of years. And I don't know that it's really evolved with SVOD or all the different ways the audience engages with the content. It's just they don't have to sit through a 2-minute ad break every 6 minutes watching a television show now, probably.
I'd love to ask you in our last minute here, what do you think is, well, I was going to go with the negative. I was going to say, what do you think is the biggest mistake people make? But I'm going to flip things around. It's a new me in 2019. I'm getting ready for it.
Yeah.
Tell me about a situation where branded content is done right.
Yep. I mean, I think there's a lot of brands that are doing right. I use Patagonia kind of as one of the...
And why is that?
The gold standards. Just for years, they've never been scared to have a voice and, be who they are, even if it alienated maybe a certain percentage of the population. And if you look at some of the stuff that they've done now around public lands and really that's a voice that's been integral to the brand since the founder, they've never been scared to be who they are. And I think... it's certainly working. Like from what you read, they're privately held, so they don't release sales figures. But certainly the business is up. Significant ways in the last couple of years. So I use them, but I think there's a lot of good examples out there. And the biggest thing I think is really respecting the audience and being authentic. Those are the two biggest things that have to happen for it to work, to resonate for them. For the audience to engage with it on their terms, because at the end of the day, the audience is in control of what they're watching. It's not, you sit and watch, 8 minutes of advertising during an hour-long show now. So,
and I think it's respect for the audience, authenticity, but also having something to say.
Yeah.
Other than just, look how great we are.
Yeah. No, and I think just about any brand can find something that they stand for, the reason for being. And maybe it's an interesting founder. There's a lot of angles that you can take. It's just, not being scared to do it as well. Or, saying, all right, is this, has this gone through 6 focus groups and kind of checked off every politically correct box that it possibly can to get to the audience. So,
and by the way, anything that's really interesting and good probably can't do all of those things.
No. I've been through the process where that has been the ask, and it's always been garbage that comes out on the other end. So,
oh my God, can you point us to one project you were involved in that you particularly love that you can maybe tell our audience about?
I still love Mind of a Chef. Bourdain was one of the executive producers on the show, but just it really took a completely different angle onto food television and dug into the creativity, the what inspired these folks in the kitchen. And it wasn't necessarily anyone that you had ever heard of. Sometimes it was chefs from all over the world, but it really kind of laid the groundwork for some of the stuff that you see on Netflix now. So it was groundbreaking, but I still think there's a lot of legs left on it. So
I feel like this interview should have been over a meal with how much we're talking about food.
A meal and a beer. We definitely, that'll be next time.
Exactly.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, Rob, for being
pleasure.
on the Go Creative Show. Have a great panel. It's coming up in just a few minutes. And where can people go to learn more about you and 0.0?
Go to 0.0.com and all the links to social are on there as well.
And it's 0, Z-E-R-O point, not just the dot, the actual spelling, 0.0.com.
Do you know where the name is from?
No.
I think I do, but go ahead.
Go ahead. See, we'll see. It'll be...
I don't know the show, but on Stern, they play a little clip of a guy going 0.
So it's Animal House.
It is.
So, yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. That's where they got the
Dean
clip
when
from.
he's talking to Belushi's character is like, fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life. Bukowski, 0.0.
I love it.
That's awesome.
All right, great.
Thanks so much for being on.
My pleasure. Thanks, man.
See you, man.
You are listening to the PremiumBeat.com Song of the Week. It's called Hey Hey by Soulish. PremiumBeat.com is the place to go for all of your royalty-free music and sound effects. And they've got big news, people. Big news. Because now they offer stems. For those of you that don't know, of course, Premium Beat always offered more than just the individual track, because they offered loop sets and they offered cut downs, different, a 15, a 30, a 60, whatever it may be. But now they give you stems, which is the ultimate in customization of audio tracks like this, because you actually get the tracks. The tracks. So you can go in and truly customize this song to fit your project perfectly. And all for $69. $69 to get the music, the stems, the whole thing. It's incredible. But the most important thing is the quality of the music, and you're going to get that at PremiumBeat.com. So have no fears. Head over to PremiumBeat.com, grab yourself some music, get those stems, and play around with them. This is huge news, and it's super fun for all of you audio enthusiasts out there that want to make your video music tracks just a little bit cooler, a little bit more customized. Head over there, PremiumBeat.com. So I'm here with Brian Newman, who is the founder of Subgenre and also one of the panelists on the Branded Content and Storytelling panel.
Hello.
Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us what you do. You were just about to launch into a big thing, and I said, save it for the show, because I want it to be the first time.
Yeah, so most of my work is working with brands that are making films now. And it's a kind of somewhat new area. And I mainly work on the distribution and marketing side, strategy as well, helping them figure out what they want to make and how to get it to an audience. And I'm also a producer and produce my own documentaries and narrative features as well. But what pays the bills is the brand work.
So it's brands making films?
Yeah.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah, so one of my longest running clients is Patagonia, the clothing company. And
Popular company here at this table today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has that come up a few times?
Yes.
Rob was just talking about how Patagonia is one of, for him, he was saying that's like the pinnacle of really well done branded content.
Yeah, so I've been helping them do that for about 5 years now.
Wonderful.
And Patagonia is founded by Yvon Chouinard, who's a big environmental activist. So a lot of their films are focused on environmental activism. And they'll put up the funding for the film. And then the filmmakers have complete creative control. They make a good quality project. Patagonia knows that they're not filmmakers. Let the filmmakers do their job.
Sure.
But then when the film's done, they help with marketing the film. And so when a film comes out that Patagonia does, any Patagonia store you walk into has marketing throughout the whole store, pushing the film. And often there's a message, like a petition that we're trying to get signed. And we can do that through all of Patagonia's retail stores. We can do it through their catalogs on their website. And what's great is, if I do independent films a lot as well. And when it comes time to marketing, you're struggling to get the word out. But when you have a brand behind you, it's, effectively millions of dollars of marketing support for a little documentary to get it out there.
I'd love to talk about how branded content has kind of evolved because, not that long ago, all you really had is commercials or product placement in a film. Branded content's really a new kind of industry that production companies like mine have been able to take advantage of quite a bit. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's a few things going on. And one is that advertising agencies and brands have started figuring out a lot of people don't want to watch their ads. They're skipping their ads. They're using ad blockers. And so why make something people don't want to watch and interrupt them if you could make something people actually do want to watch? Simultaneous to that, you've got the rise of subscription video on demand projects like Netflix is the most famous, and there's no advertising in those. So for brands to even break into that space, they need to make content that Netflix would want to bother showing. They've really upped their game and are working with quality filmmakers to make good stuff. And I think when it started, it was a lot of product placement and, it felt like a brand piece. But brands are starting to move away from that and try to be more genuine. And a lot of times, Patagonia in particular, you won't even see their product in the films whatsoever. You might even see a competitor's product. They don't care as long as a film is doing something good.
Now, with something like that, I think that's really compelling and interesting as a storyteller and somebody involved in a production company. But I'm thinking about how does that reach new audiences? I can see if you're already into the Patagonia world, you love the content, you constantly go to it, you're following, you're paying attention to it. I think how do you then take that branded content and distribute it to people that don't know about it?
Right. It's a great question, and I think that's one of the biggest problems for brands, generally speaking. And I'll tell you one way we do it, but if you look at award shows for branded content, like the Cannes Lions or things like Adweek, you'll see these brand campaigns that win all these awards, but then you look at the actual viewership numbers and they're tiny.
Yeah.
And no one's really watched them. So brands have to really think smartly about how do we get it to a bigger audience. One of the things I've done, for example, is Patagonia made a film called Damnation about dam removal, which is a subject that's obscure to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Their core audience understands it. But what I figured out was one audience that cares about dam removal is people who care about salmon. And in addition to fishermen, chefs care about quality salmon. So we involved David Chang from the Momofuku Empire in our Q&As for the film. And that enabled food bloggers and food press to start writing about this dam removal film.
Got it.
And that brought in a whole new audience we wouldn't have normally had of foodies that now understand why dams are a bad thing. So you're always, as a brand or as a marketer, trying to figure out, like, what are adjacent audiences that might be open to what I'm talking about but aren't my core audience, so that I can expand the audience for this film.
That's really smart. I love that. One of the first questions I always ask any new client of mine is, what do you want to say? Like, what are you trying to say with this commercial or whatever it is that we're working on? And so it's amazing how many people don't know what they want to say.
Yeah.
And part of what we do is kind of help them figure it out. But I can only imagine when you're working with somebody that wants to do branded content, you have to say so much more than just a 30-second ad. You're building a culture around your product or brand.
And as creatives, that's the biggest part of the job, is to really convince them that you know what you're doing and you can help them tell a better story than they would tell.
Yeah.
And to give you the freedom to do that, so that what you make for them can go to a broader audience than what their core is. Because the brand managers, the marketing managers are just thinking about their core audience. As a creative, you have to help them break out of that. So a lot of my job on the strategic level is helping find filmmakers and other creatives that can help them do that. That's the big piece of it. What I think is interesting now is brands are, as they're starting to realize, like, everyone's making branded content, they have to up their game. They have to work with better creatives. They have to work with better budgets. And they have to think more broadly than just making documentaries. So a lot of brands now are considering narrative films, episodic series. And that's what I think is going to be exciting about the next stages.
And the funding is probably there when you don't need to buy airtime.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not spending it on air, you can spend it on production.
Yeah. And so the budgets for these are usually pretty decent for the people making them. And you're still spending money because you have to, just like any film, you have to market it to the audience. But you're spending less because it's something hopefully people want to see. And in the best case scenario, like NetScout made a film with Werner Herzog, who's a documentary filmmaker who, is kind of dark usually in his works. And so it was really brave of them to do that. But there, they actually sold the movie to a distributor. So instead of having to go spend marketing money, a distributor bought the movie from them and then took it out and did the marketing for them. So, and that's a win-win for sure.
Now, with subgenre, are you like a consultant firm, or how do you work in this space?
Yeah, my company's a consulting firm. It's a small company. It's me and 2 staff, and we work with a handful of brands. I've been lucky that I just work with people I like. So I'm only working on brands that I trust and like myself and don't mind selling their product. And I help them with what I figured out early on is there's plenty of producers and production companies out there. What they need is help with how do we find an audience.
Yeah.
And so that's what my firm focuses on, is the marketing and distribution and getting it to an audience.
So when you work with a company, they come to you, you help them navigate the distribution and the audience building, but they have the creative, or are you also pairing them with creative?
It's a bit of both. It depends on the client.
Yeah.
So for example, one of my clients is REI, who's also in the outdoor space.
Yeah.
Have stores around the country. It's a co-op. And I was just with them in LA, and they're meeting with different producers. And strategically, I'm just helping them pick the right people to meet with. And there, it's going to be pretty exciting because REI is very much, they're an outdoor company, but they want to think broadly about what outside means. So they're talking to producers about not just documentaries, but also narrative films. And it doesn't have to be a mountain climbing film. It could be about just getting kids outdoors more often. As a brand, they want people to think about the outdoors and outdoor activities in a different way. And so they're going to support and sponsor and invest in all types of content to do that.
Fantastic.
That is so fun. What a cool job.
I'm enjoying it. It's also great because I'm an independent film producer, and when my movies come out, they're usually not getting enough marketing support, and with brands, you get plenty.
Yeah.
So it's nice.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so happy that you're here. And
Thanks for having me.
And I'm very much looking forward to the branded content and storytelling panel. I wish I could be there, but I'm going to have to catch it afterwards, I suppose. I'm going to be, well, that's the advantage is we get to talk to great people like you.
Yep.
The disadvantage is while we're doing that, we're missing other people like you speaking.
We don't see the show at all.
We don't see the show, but it's okay.
That's right. You get to talk to people one-on-one. So that's even
That's
better.
true. That's true. We do get, it's about quality for
That's
us.
right.
Quality time.
right.
I like the way you think. Brian Newman, thank you so
Thanks
much.
again.
Where can people go online to learn more about you and your company?
My website's sub-genre.com, and it's got all my info there.
sub-genre.com. Check it out, learn more about Brian and what he does. He's got a nice portfolio of clients here.
It's been fun.
Not too shabby. We got some really nice stuff here. So
Great. Thank you.
thank you so much. So I'm here with Katie Pridham. She is the head of brand partnerships at GirlBoss and a speaker today here at the Mass Media Expo. And so happy to have you here. Thank you.
So glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Tell us what GirlBoss is.
Yes. GirlBoss is an incredible platform, and we are a brand that comes to life through community, content, and experiences. And it really started just a year ago. The company actually started and launched with a GirlBoss Rally, which is our experiential activation that comes to life twice a year and ultimately breathes new life into conferences and provides a conference for women, entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, side hustlers, front hustlers, and really just the access and education that they need to redefine success in their own terms. And so while the company's new, the brand isn't. In fact, it started actually in 2014 with Sophia Amoruso, who is our founder and CEO. Her personal journey, she wrote a book called #GirlBoss. And it started through that. And it was her personal journey of success of rising and building this massive retail empire called Nasty Gal. And all of the learnings and all of the challenges and obstacles she faced as a young, really young entrepreneur and what she wished she would have known back then. And so in 2014, it became a New York Times bestseller, still a high performer. But what we realized is that there was a white space in the industry for women entrepreneurs. There was a white space for a community of women to come together and say, hey, I want to start my own business, but how do I even go about that? Or I want to find a graphic designer in my community. How do I get connected with those women? How do I learn from those women? So it's just as much a balance as learning from people that have already made it, as well as women that are on their journey to make it.
So you really are kind of a portal for connecting with people in a whole variety of industries, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think, the most important thing is that there's tons of incredible companies such as GirlBoss that are providing the inspiration and the empowerment that women deserve in our world right now and in our culture.
Yeah.
But it's also about the opportunity. And in order to find those opportunities, you need the tools and the resources. So it's not just about the why, it's also about okay, how do I even start? How do I even go about this?
Yeah.
And so that could expand from different industries, such as creative, such as a jewelry designer in Boston, downtown Boston, or in Canada. So it's really making sure that we're providing her with the tools and resources for her to live her best and life, both personally and professionally.
Now, as head of brand partnerships, what is your role?
Yeah, so what I'm in charge with at GirlBoss is actually building our commercial strategy and monetizing our strategy at that. But the way we actually look at brand partnerships is one that, because we're not a traditional media company, because we're not a traditional publisher and we're a brand, we have the opportunity and responsibility to work with like-minded brands that provide value and resource back to this consumer. And so how we filter that, how we quantify that, how we qualify that is really, really important. And so we work with brands such as Google, such as QuickBooks, both incredible brands that are providing tools for women entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs. QuickBooks is one that is an incredible service for entrepreneurs to manage their own finances, whereas Google has an entity called Google Small Thanks, in which they're giving back and they're giving resources to small business owners.
So how are you working with them? are they providing those services through your organization, or how does that work?
Yeah, great question. So an example of how we work with brand partners is Google, for instance. Google is a great partner to GirlBoss. How we actually work with them is figuring out what is the synergies between our brands? What is the white space that these consumers really need? And one of the things that they struggle with is, how do I expand my small business? How do I actually get people to not only know my small business, but how can I capitalize on all these incredible reviews that I have? And so what we did with Google is we actually created an environment, both experientially and through content, that helps not only get more awareness of this incredible service that they have, but also furthers the resource. So what we did is we created these small business starter kits that lived on GirlBoss that, entrepreneurs could sign up for. And then we brought that into life.
Great idea.
Yeah,
It's
it was
a really
amazing.
good idea.
And it was actually one of the most successful partnerships that we've done to date, all through a variety of categories that was very, very actionable and very resourceful, brought to you by Google Small Thanks, with integrated tips. And then more importantly, the content is one thing, but also to have that human connection, to meet these small business owners. So we hosted them at the GirlBoss Rally, where we had a small business bazaar, where it was women, small business owners, that Google could build a relationship with them and say, here's how you can expand your business online. Here's how you can get these reviews. Here's the creative that we can help you with to magnify your business. And so it was this value share that our audience and our attendees and our consumers and small business owners wanted this service, while simultaneously we were helping extend that reach beyond the IRL into the URL.
So now you're speaking on a panel called Cord Cutters, OTT, VOD, WTF.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess, what are we going to be speaking about in this panel today?
Yeah, we're really going to talk about how the industry is shifting and what does content mean today and what will it mean tomorrow. And you see all of these different challenges with content diversification, with social media, with publishers and brands becoming publishers, publishers becoming brands. And in this ever-changing landscape and industry, it's really important to take a step back to say, what is the value that we're bringing to the consumer? So we're going to talk a lot about that today. And I have some great people that I'm speaking on the panel with, which is Keith from Digitas and Jason from Funny or Die.
And we just had Jason from Funny or Die here too. And this is the new way of consuming media.
Yeah.
Cord cutting is real. It's really happening. And the OTT devices, like he was talking about, everybody has in their home.
Yep.
Whether it's a Fire Stick or Apple TV or a video game console, there is more and more ways on how to reach people and how to provide content. And it sort of has opened up this whole new world of content can be anything. It doesn't need to be 26 minutes. It can be anything.
It's so true. And we see that a lot. And one of the things that we'll talk about today is, how are brands becoming publishers and how are they building their own content? And an example that I like, that I'm inspired by, is a brand like Peloton. They are a brand. They are in some ways a technology company, in some ways a product. But what they're doing also is they're providing this product, this service, but their classes are content. That experience that you get from Peloton is very different than a SoulCycle or any other thing. So brands really do have the responsibility and massive opportunity to think about, beyond just a product, beyond just a service, how do I create a connection with this consumer? And that can be through content.
It's amazing. Yeah, Peloton, a friend of mine last night just came over and told me that they just bought one.
Yeah.
And you see them in the mall and you're like, it's an exercise bike, but it's a platform.
It's a platform and it's a community.
Yes, I've seen stickers on the backs of cars now with their logo. I'm like, wow, it's really becoming like this whole thing. And people really believe in it. It's great. It's great.
I think one of the first times that I really saw people rally around companies and create a culture around a company is Apple with the iPhone releases. And I feel like that's kind of become the model for how to be a technology company that also creates a community around them and gives more than just products.
Yes, exactly. And that's what we're doing here at GirlBoss. And that's, why I joined GirlBoss too, is that the community is what is so special about the GirlBoss brand, is that it's not just, as I mentioned, a media company. The idea of GirlBoss, being a GirlBoss, is an identity. It's an emotional connection to say, I'm a GirlBoss and I can do this and I can get over my fear of talking on a live podcast or going on stage. I can do this as a GirlBoss, or I can start my own company, or I can be not afraid to fail forward. And so having all of these elements,
Failing up and failing forward are my favorite.
Yeah,
I like that.
It's really important to know that there's learnings that come out of everything. And so when you can build a culture and when you can build an identity around your brand, it's so much more than just a launch of a phone or a launch of a content series or an event. It's how might I feel differently after this experience, or how might it change my life? And that really comes to the emotional connection. And certain brands are doing it incredibly well, and they're building a community around it.
Now, where can people go to learn more about you and GirlBoss?
Yes. Well, I encourage you to actually check out girlbossrally.com, because we have our upcoming GirlBoss Rally November 17th and 18th. In New York City, and we're really excited. This will be our 4th rally. We've had over we've had over 1,900 women from the last rally. Had women from 19 different countries, 36 different states, and 230 different cities. So women all over the world were coming to be part of this experience, but also this journey. And so, encourage you to check out girlbossrally.com. girlboss.com, as well as our social channels, and of course our GirlBoss Radio podcast network.
Wow.
So
Podcast Network.
podcast network.
Yeah.
Look
Heard
at
it here
that.
first.
I love that. Well, excellent. Girlboss.com is the place to go to learn all about these great things. Thank you so much, Katie, for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so great chatting with you.
You too. Let's take a break and talk about Rule Boston Camera. Rule is the place to go to purchase and rent all of your production equipment. Purchase and rent. Now, here's the thing. The most important part, I think, about my relationship with Rule, and everybody that works with them, buys or rents from Rule, is the service, right? And you might be thinking, why? Who cares? I'm just going to buy something and whatever. I don't care about the service. I just want to buy it and get on with my day. Now, think about this. You're renting because you don't own, right? So if you don't own a piece of equipment, you may not know how to use it, as well as the equipment that you do own, right? Because you're renting. It's not yours. Now, that is why service is important. And at Rule, you're going to get expert advice and counsel in pre-production. So you'll get technical guidance when you take the equipment out for your shoot, and they're committed to supporting you if you need them while you're on location. It's like a big blanket covering you, protecting you, so that if anything goes wrong, they've got your back. And that's what I mean by service. That's why service is important, and Rule is going to give you that. Now, aside from the service, they've got a world-class inventory of rental gear, cameras, audio equipment, lighting, grip gear, communications, camera dynamics. The list goes on and on and on. They've got a huge selection of lenses. The company's been around for over 35 years, so you can imagine the stuff that they have hidden away there that you have access to anytime you want. All you got to do is give them a call or head over to their website and check out what they have to offer. And I guarantee you will become a lifelong partner with Rule Boston Camera. That's how I think about them, as a production partner. So head over there, rule.com, RULE.com. What a show, what a show, what a show. Thank you guys so much for listening to our coverage from the Mass Media Expo. Believe it or not, there's still more to come. Yes, this is a 2-part episode. You just went through the first part. There's so much more to come in the next episode. So please check your subscription and make sure that you download the next episode, Mass Media Expo 2018, Part 2. I want to thank our sponsors, Hedge.video, Rule Boston Camera, NewsShooter.com, Shutterstock.com, and PremiumBeat.com. Without those people, the show wouldn't exist, and that would stink. So go support those that support us. I also want to thank Matt Russell for making the show sound so good. He mixes it. He masters it. He puts it all together and does all the stuff that I certainly can't do myself. And he can do it for you. So check him out at gainstructure.com and on Twitter at gainstructure. And while you're on Twitter, tweet us at GoCreativeShow, at GoCreativeShow. So much more to come from the Mass Media Expo in Part 2. See you there.